Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Sue. So next up, Clare Shaw, consultant dietitian at the Royal Marsden NHS Foundation Trust, talks to us on the subject, You Are What You Eat.
Hello everybody, I'm Clare Shaw, I'm consultant dietitian at the Royal Marsden Hospital. And I'm going to talk to you about the work of a dietitian, which for me, I think is just a perfect combination of food and science brought together. Have you ever really thought about what you eat? You are actually what you eat. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that now. My job as a dietitian brings together the science of nutrition, along with health, disease, and helping people. So my job is really varied. No 2 days are ever the same. I work in a great team. I work with other professionals who are also scientists. And for me, it's just a perfect combination of science and food. Have you ever wondered about the food you eat and how it influences your health and your body? So I'm going to start by asking a few basic questions about nutrition. First of all, what are the building blocks of your muscles? Are they made from protein, carbohydrates such as sugars and starches, or fat? Now, those of you that are doing science will know the answer to these questions. Your muscles and other organs in the body are made of protein, and this protein comes from protein in your diet, such as meat, fish, eggs, cheese, beans, nuts. This means that you are what you eat. So protein is broken down in your digestive system, and those amino acids, those building blocks, are translated into your own body tissues. Next, we move on to a question about vitamins. Which vitamin is important to help those proteins in your tissues hold together? Is it vitamin B, vitamin C, or vitamin D? The answer is vitamin C. This is the vitamin that you get from fruits and vegetables. It's only a vitamin, i.e. it's essential for us because we can't make it. There are many species of mammals that can actually make vitamin C and they don't need to eat it in their diet. So humans, chimpanzees and guinea pigs, we're not able to make vitamin C and we have to eat it in our food. Otherwise we suffer the consequences, i.e. we have a vitamin deficiency. So in your history lessons, you might have learned people traveling around the world in ships weren't able to carry fresh fruit and vegetables, and they suffered from a disease called scurvy, which means that the proteins are not able to hold together. So another question sometimes people ask me is, how do we know how much food, how many nutrients people need? And I've got a few possible options. Can we estimate it through using mathematical equations? Can we measure the composition of the body as a basis for these calculations? Or can we measure the air that is breathed to work out how much people are burning in their bodies? Well, the answer to that is that we can use all three methods. So on a day-to-day basis, I have sets of mathematical calculations that have been worked out that I would use just in a consultation with somebody to work out roughly how much energy and protein they might need. This photograph, which seems rather odd, of somebody's feet, this is using bioimpedance. So it's a method of using a small electrical current and measuring the resistance and the capacity of that going through the body to work out how much water is in that body, and that can be translated into how much muscle somebody has and how much fat they have. So more specific estimates of body composition can also be used to calculate how many nutrients somebody would need in a day. And the other method I mentioned, which is about measuring gases produced by the body in exhaled breath, those are the sorts of techniques that dietitians might use if they're working on, say, critical care, where somebody is on a ventilator, and they can work out from the amount of carbon dioxide produced how much energy, how many calories that person would need for the day. So what do I do for my job as a dietitian? I hope I've given you just a glimpse of some of the science behind what we do. So behind the scenes, we're talking about nutrients, energy, vitamins, minerals, but what people eat is food. So what I have to do is translate that into what should people be eating on a daily basis. Now, I work with cancer patients, so they're people who are going through treatment, might be having surgery or drugs or radiotherapy to treat their condition. And what I do is talk through ways in which they can eat well to maintain good health, maintain their body composition whilst they go through treatment. And sometimes they don't feel like eating, so we have to come up with lots of different ways of tempting them to eat, and ideas. Maybe they need more protein or more energy at times, or maybe they're not digesting food as well as they should do. So this is me in a clinical situation where I'm talking to somebody, talking through what they're managing and what sort of changes would be helpful for them. I've also had an opportunity to develop recipes. I've written a book for our hospital, which talks about the science of nutrition, but then is full of recipes to help people to translate that into day-to-day meals. So other aspects of my job, again, you might look at some of these photographs and think, what are you doing? On the left, you know, that is a picture of, well, we're measuring somebody's waist measurement. That's really important, not only as a gauge as to whether their body composition is changing, but for some people we might be assessing their risk of diabetes. We might be looking at measuring various parts of the body, like the upper arm, to check on protein muscle stores. The middle diagram shows you different ways of feeding. I've talked very much about people eating and drinking, but this is using tube feeding to make sure people can get the right nutrients if they're not able to eat. And on the right, that picture of the white liquid is a way of feeding people if their digestive tract isn't working at all. So that's working out all the nutrients they need, and that they're translated into what's called parenteral nutrition, whereby those nutrients are administered straight into the bloodstream. So I hope what I've done is shown you a little bit how the science applies to my job. I absolutely love my job. It's such an interesting area, dealing with people, talking about the science of food and nutrition. Also, as part of my job, I do research. So finding out new things, the better ways of working, just leads to such a fascinating day-to-day working environment. So I would definitely recommend, if you're interested in food and science, that it's a perfect combination of those two. If you'd like more information about becoming a dietitian, then I would encourage you to look at the British Dietetic Association website. It's got information about careers, what dietitians do, and what you need to become a dietitian.
Thank you so much for a great presentation. I don't know if we have any quick questions because I appreciate the time. The one question I was going to ask, is there anything we should be eating to help make COVID less severe?
Hello, can everybody hear me? It's Claire here.
Yes, we can hear you well, Claire. That's
you
great.
can hear me. You can hear me. Really good question about COVID. We looked at the research when COVID pandemic was happening. I think probably the nutrient that has sparked the most interest has been vitamin D. And actually the national advice on vitamin D was changed during the pandemic because, of course, we get vitamin D from the sun as well as from food. And it was noticed that people who had low vitamin D levels didn't do quite as well when they had COVID. And there's an ongoing discussion about that. So it's a vitamin, but we also rely on the sun to get it. So not just a food, but but now the recommendation is for people to take a low dose supplement if they're not going out as much as they used to. So probably not a direct food question, but certainly a nutrient question. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Because it was a really interesting presentation. I think we forget how important what we eat is and how important dietetics and dietitians are to ensuring, particularly patients who may not be able to eat as many variety of foods as others, get the appropriate nutrients they need.
Yeah, and there's a short film on the British Dietetic Association website about the variety of jobs people do. Mine is very specialised, but there's lots of things people do. They work in journalism, teaching, all sorts of different aspects, and there's a glimpse of that on the website.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Back to you, Sue, to introduce the next presentation.
Yeah, this will be from Matthew Davis, who's the Chief Sleep Physiologist at the Respiratory Sleep Unit at Great Ormond Street Hospital. And he's going to talk to us all about sleep physiology, which is perhaps something that the audience really actually didn't know a great deal about, but it's actually a very interesting subject and an interesting branch of science.
Hello, my name's Matthew Davis and I'm a paediatric sleep physiologist at Great Ormond Street Hospital. I'm going to be talking to you today about what it is like to be a sleep physiologist. And we've also been given a short quiz to complete as well, and you'll find all the answers in this presentation. So what is sleep physiology? I'm sure that many of you have never heard of what this is, but what I can assure you is that all of you sleep. So there must be some importance to why we sleep. So why do we sleep? So there's many benefits to why we sleep: physical restoration and growth, memory and learning, mood regulation, energy replenishment, improving your immune system, and even creativity. Something that you've been learning about in school, so the structure of the atom, the periodic table, even Google was thought up during sleep. So what is good sleep? How much sleep do we need? So I'm sure that we all know that when we're babies, we sleep for much longer period of time than our grandparents do. So babies sleeping longer is because they need that sleep to promote the growth and the memory and the learning. And children, as they get older, then require less sleep. So if we look at children 13 to 16 years of age, we can see they need roughly between 8 to 11 hours sleep a night. So I'll ask you guys, are you getting that amount of sleep? And the answer is probably no, because I can imagine late in the evening, you might be playing FIFA, Call of Duty, scrolling, looking at your phone at TikTok videos and Instagram. And these devices, so maybe your iPads, your iPhones, your TVs, they release a light called blue light. And that can have an effect on your sleep. So how does that blue light affect your sleep? Well, our brain releases a hormone called melatonin. And in the day, when there's natural sunlight, our melatonin levels in our body are quite low. And therefore we feel awake and ready. But when it gets darker, our melatonin levels increase, and that makes us feel sleepy and promotes sleep. And it is our eyes that are detecting these light levels and whether melatonin should be high or low. And when we're looking at our iPads and our iPhones and it's shining blue light into our eyes, it tricks our brain into not releasing melatonin, so we don't feel sleepy. So how do we measure sleep? Well, we use a sleep study. And the scientific name for a sleep study is polysomnography. It's a bit of a mouthful. So what does it measure? It measures brain activity, movements during sleep. Maybe someone's a sleepwalker. Your breathing, which is important for people that might have obstructive sleep apnea, and your heart rhythm. And you can see in a sleep study, there are a lot of sensors that we need to put on. So this poor young girl here who's having a sleep study, it's quite difficult for her to have a good night's sleep when she's got all those stickers on. So this is what our brain looks like when you're asleep. So when you're in deep sleep, your brain is producing electrical signals that look like this. So you get these really big, slow brain waves. And your breathing when you're asleep is quite rhythmic, it's quite relaxed and rhythmic. So you can see here, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in and breathing out. So this is what our normal breathing looks like when we're asleep. So what is obstructive sleep apnea? Well, obstructive sleep apnea, or what we more commonly call as OSA, is when you stop breathing during your sleep for short periods of time because of obstruction in your upper airway. So when you sleep, the muscles in your upper airway relax. If they relax too much, you may stop breathing. This is what we call an obstructive apnea, and it lasts a minimum of 10 seconds, causing you to wake up. And this then disturbs good sleep. So you then have a poor night's sleep, and all those benefits of sleep that we talked about earlier might not be as effective. So obstructive sleep apnea is thought to affect nearly 1 billion people worldwide, which is incredible. So that's nearly 1 in 8 of us worldwide. And this is what an obstructive sleep apnea looks like on a sleep study. So you can see those flat lines. Those flat lines are when we stop breathing, and then we start breathing again, and then we stop breathing. And this happens throughout the night. So we have a very disrupted night's sleep, and it even causes our oxygen levels in our blood to drop as well. So the common causes in adults is obesity. So the fat deposits in the upper airway make the airway very crowded and quite heavy. So when you're asleep and your muscles relax, that can cause obstructive apnea. In children, the cause is more commonly due to large tonsils, and this is usually in 3 to 6-year-olds. And possibly surgery by removing the tonsils will then help stop the obstructive sleep apnea. You could also have CPAP. So this is a device that uses a mask, which is connected to a machine, which pressurizes air, puts it into your airway, and that holds the airways open and stops them from collapsing, and therefore stops an obstructive sleep apnea. CPAP is also used in patients that were diagnosed with COVID, because it helps their breathing. It holds their airways open and helps with oxygenating the blood and getting rid of CO2 as well. So if you have obstructive sleep apnea or any type of sleep disorder, we start to lose these benefits of sleep. So it's important that we have sleep physiology and sleep physiologists that can perform sleep studies, diagnose any sleep disorder, and then implement some treatment as well. Now, the great benefit of being a physiologist or any healthcare scientist is that you get to work as part of a great team. So it's always exciting to come to work. Thank you and good night.
Thank you for that. That was a very enlightening and interesting presentation again.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, everybody.
We'll take a short break now, but join us at 2 o'clock when Mahmoud Tarek Bashir talks to us about the fluidity of science careers today.